Hey everyone, this is RayRob, where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob, and we want to welcome you to our podcast, Hello Movies, My Old Friend.
Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My old friend.
That's right, Rob. We have another new episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend. Tell everybody what we're going to try and do here today.
Absolutely. On Hello Movies, My Old Friend, Ray and I revisit classics from our youth. We usually kind of put it as a cutoff about high school.
Yeah.
But these are movies that we remember really loving as kids. Probably watched multiple times, but, as time happens, you just stop watching stuff, and we want to see if they still hold up.
Yeah, we haven't seen these movies in years, and today's movie I probably haven't seen since maybe middle school.
Definitely middle school.
Probably checked it out quite a bit. Thought it was a really fun movie. I'm worried if we're gonna like it though. Today's selection.
We've had a lot of problems with that.
We've not liked a lot of
You can say that pretty much before
to.
every one of these that we've had. So we've had some issues. We've had some hits and we have had some misses. But this one's kind of timely because we are definitely in a time of oversaturation of superhero movies. So we are revisiting one that was before all that hullabaloo, and that is the 1994 superhero comedy parody film, Blankman.
Yes, we're going to see Blankman starring Damon Wayons and Allen Grier, Robin Givens.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking this movie was really fun and funny.
Yeah, and I'm sure, this falls into that silly comedy category that kids just lapped up when, we were kids especially. And, but yeah, as far as holding up, I don't know.
I think it's going to need to have that B movie feel, and they're aware that they are a B movie for this to work. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does do that.
Yeah, there's definitely possible. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Blankman, it follows Damon Wayons, who is a repairman.
Yeah.
Who,
junker.
Something like that. And he becomes a superhero after his grandmother is murdered in a mob hit.
You get inspired.
As you do.
He's a tinkerer, and he is able to develop bulletproof costume.
Right. And he basically, has a whole array of gadgets and gizmos, and I think it's definitely supposed to be a take on Batman. The tagline is "Coming to save your butt."
Yeah.
So we're going to see if Blankman can come to save our butts.
Appreciated. What do you remember? I think I remember more feels than anything. I remember a couple shots.
I think some of the gadgets.
The
he has weird
he
wears funky glasses. Yeah. I remember that. I don't remember if the glasses did anything, but I remember he wore funky glasses, and I feel like I remember something with like a plunger, gun or something. I don't know. I could completely be misremembering. And his goofy costume. I do remember kind of the goofy costume.
Does Allen Grier become his sidekick and also have a costume?
I think you might be right. I think you're right.
I think that happens.
That does ring a bell.
Now, this didn't come from In Living Color in any way.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously these guys were made famous by In Living Color, but I don't think this is like
because he played he had his own superhero
maybe
the handicap guy, but that's not Blankman.
No. I don't think so. I think this is something completely new.
Yeah.
But it's not like an SNL thing where it's like a sketch went on to become a movie. But but there's been, obviously mixed success on that front for SNL. So, let's see if Blankman does this.
At the very least, we remember it well. Hopefully we don't damage our memories here.
Right. Yeah, I honestly think we could be swinging ourselves right into a brick wall with this one.
There's only one way to find out, Rob.
There's only one way to find out.
We have to go watch it. We're the ones that picked it. And anybody listening to the podcast, if you haven't seen Blankman, or if you haven't seen it recently, take this opportunity to pause the podcast, go check it out, and then come back, unpause the podcast, and listen to what me and Rob have to think as we venture back into 1994's Blankman.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everybody, we are back from watching Blankman. I will say I did remember some things as we started to watch this movie. Some things did fire in the old brain.
Definitely.
I was able to kind of remember some jokes ahead of time, some shots and stuff. So a good little rewatch. Nice little dip in our toe back into the superhero genre of 1994.
Yeah, which is kind of I'm going to call it the wild, wild west of superhero movies.
Yeah, there wasn't really a roadmap of how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Burton's Batman was 1989, and that was not the first superhero movie by any means, but I do feel like it was that first big splash of what would eventually become what we know today as, the superhero franchise.
Yeah, still took another 20 years to get it really going, but we had to wait for the technology to catch up.
Right, exactly. But at that time, because that was the one, they were able to kind of branch off and do some more experimentation within that genre before it finally became so streamlined that now we have, the MCU and the DCEU and all, these things that are like machines unto themselves.
Yeah. And I think Blankman does kind of pay some homage to Batman in some ways.
Oh, for sure.
Small ways. It's doing, but I think it's very smartly kind of doing its own thing there too.
Yeah.
It's, it is a guy who can kind of create all his old gadgets. So maybe like, it's inspiring from Tim Burton's Batman, but it's also relying on the 1960s Batman, which they watch and clearly reference in the movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because Blankman is a kind of create your own, utility belt guy kind of guy.
Yeah. And, obviously the Wayans brothers go on to really be known for parody, whether it's scary movies or, whatever. And I think, obviously, they're dipping their toe in that here, but it's a little different. It's not full-on parody. It's not just where it has to be joke. Like I do feel like with Blankman, they're still, while not taking themselves seriously, they're also not just treating this as a throwaway comedy per se.
Yeah, and maybe there wasn't enough. Maybe back then there just wasn't enough of those types of movies to make a full-on parody of. Like there wasn't enough jokes to pull from.
Right.
But I don't think that hurts the movie. I think I don't mind the way it's paced and the way it's joked out. You're chuckling pretty much throughout the movie. Even when the scenes don't have jokes, like Damon Wayans' portrayal of Daryl Blankman is just humorous in of itself because he's just a geek.
Yeah,
he's just a big geek.
Absolutely. Well, and the other interesting element of Blankman is the time period that it was made, not just because of the superhero genre, but also kind of what was going on in black cinema at the time. Within this 5-year period, 91 to 95, 96, you were getting movies like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, these very big, strong social statements that were very important for very obvious reasons. Yeah. And they were taken seriously for very obvious reasons. Well, Blankman's not necessarily saying something that different. Talking about community, talking about safety within that community and all of that, and what you do to fight back against those things that are, kind of bearing down on you. But it's not in that kind of John Singleton voice, which is obviously very serious, or the Hughes brothers. It is very, it's the Wayans voice, it's in living color,
Yeah, it is.
So it's funny.
It is, and we've talked about, on our channel many times how movies can sometimes take those serious topics, comedies, like a Jojo Rabbit, and like we talked about with Death of Stalin and stuff, like take those serious concepts, still put them out there for display, but use comedy to put their voice on it, and still kind of keep it in the mainstream.
Yeah, and I think another interesting element to Blankman is the portrayal of Daryl and like the type of character he is, because if you think of it, the African American male character in a lot of cinema up to this point, they fit into, I don't want to call it stereotype because that's not fair, but you know what I mean? Like there's
movie stereotype,
obviously with blaxploitation in the 70s, there's a lot of trying to break out of that kind of stereotype. And up to this point, and I'll even say, I think Blankman to a certain degree is a blaxploitation film. In a great way, because I'm a fan of blaxploitation filmmaking. It's not a negative connotation. I know it sounds like that, but it's not what it is. And I think in this instance, it's the Wayans kind of putting their stamp on that, but using Daryl as leaning into the stereotype of the nerd.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like full full bore, like whole
Yeah.
whole hog,
Complete
on
Peter Parker nerdy
right,
kid.
exactly. And I think that was such a great portrayal, because I don't think that it's unfairly, black men don't typically get to be portrayed in that light.
Right.
You know what I mean? And why not? It's like
Sure,
it doesn't
we
make
can all
it,
be nerds.
right? We can all be nerds. Like I've known some guys very much like this in my life. So I think that's another, maybe not even necessarily appreciated element of Blankman.
Yeah.
That I think should be appreciated.
Yeah, and apparently Damon Wayans just has he kind of likes this idea of superhero storytelling, because we were actually looking at some in Living Color, and his portrayal of Handyman, which is
Right.
I think it's in a similar vein in that it is like it's a character who's portrayed as or thought of as weak, who's going to use powers of good to be strong and save the day. So apparently that's just a round of storytelling he likes. So this was a much more appropriate version of that. But let's talk about the movie. Because not really a movie that's rated very well.
No, it's horrible.
Remembered very
the
well.
Rotten Tomato score is like 12% or something like that for this movie.
But you know what? I found myself. I've said it. I found myself chuckling through a lot of it.
Yeah,
I think David Allen Grier is like, he's just great. David Allen Grier.
it's classic David Allen Grier.
Yeah,
this is the David Allen Grier you want. If you see him on screen, this is what you want.
Yeah, this is what you cast him for this purpose. They probably wrote the role for this purpose, and
Absolutely.
he executes it perfectly. He kind of just like, it reminds me of like when I see him in Jungle Book. No, not Jungle Book. Robin Williams.
Oh, Jumanji.
Jumanji. All
There
right,
it is.
cut that. Yeah, Jumanji.
No, I'm leaving it in.
Jumanji. He's great in Jumanji, where he's like, he gets just all those weird reaction faces that he does so well, where he just scrunches his face up, has that really high-pitched, awkward scream.
Yeah.
He gets to do that a couple times in this movie. It's like, when you bring in David Allen Grier, that's what you bring him in for.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I had mentioned, and you mentioned in Living Color, obviously this is not an offshoot as like they've made SNL sketches or movies out of sketches. That's not what this is, even though it could feel that way.
Sure.
Because it's the same type of comedy that you would have seen on In Living Color. But it's nice to for them to take what they were creating on in Living Color, which again was really important for the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really important for the time. And I think I saw an interesting factoid about how In Living Color is one of the reasons why the Super Bowl has this kind of like big pop culture spectacle now, because they couldn't beat In Living Color in 1992.
Their halftime show.
The halftime show couldn't beat In Living Color, because that was on at the time. More people were watching In Living Color than the Super Bowl halftime show, which is crazy to think.
Yeah.
So it was nice for them to be able to kind of take that success and put it into Blankman.
Yeah, yeah. Damon Wayans is hilarious, I think. He's just playing this just really idealistic nerd he can only see the good and just wants to help. Grandma died, she got murdered.
Yeah.
And he just wants to do good, and there's just like genuine sincerity in him.
Yeah.
So he kind of plays him like kind of this adorable little bald man, and
right.
Let's also you mentioned blaxploitation, but this is a baldsploitation movie too. God bless them for making a bald superhero. We needed
some
that
hair for that bald head of his.
No, they didn't. It was beautiful. Bald is beautiful, and Blankman was beautiful.
Well, I think it's especially after watching this now, I obviously Daryl's on the spectrum a bit,
Sure.
So I thought it's kind of a fun representation of that as well, like what that looks like as a superhero character.
Yeah, and he's a genius. He does put together
Right.
some pretty interesting machines that help in a pickle. But I did think it's funny, like the way like he doesn't have superpowers.
No,
they
no,
just
like
find this
Batman.
like invincible clothing that
Right.
they don't really use.
Right.
Like,
Not a whole lot.
like
A couple times.
Yeah,
One scene.
I think one scene he got shot at, and that
Mhm.
was it. That's
Yeah.
really the only time you ever see it. But like it's like you can't stab him, you can't shoot him, can't set him on fire, which is never tries.
Right. Why don't you
occur
just
in
shoot
the
him in the
movie.
head?
Yeah, why don't we
just
shoot him in the head?
Like,
Oh darn.
yeah. So yeah, that kind of stuff is super fun. And obviously, you know, they use a very traditional superhero origin story. Grandmother dies, you know, which sends him into this crime-fighting mode. Grandmother, played by Lynn Thigpen from Carmen Sandiego fame, who is always great, but she was also in The Warriors, and she was even in Streets of Fire, I think.
I'm not
that we had watched.
Remembering. We did watch it, but I don't remember necessarily off the bat.
I think she was in Streets of Fire too. But anyway, and I think with, you know, somebody like Robin Givens, who does play like that kind of traditional Lois Lane character, if anybody was shortchanged in this movie a little bit, maybe I think it was her.
Yeah.
I think she played a little bit flat.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's not like Robin Givens ever really went on to too big a career necessarily, but you know, there are some shortcomings in this movie for sure. You know, some of the reasons why it's rated low is kind of justified, but yeah, her character is really, it's like she kind of like cracks the code on who killed Grandma, which of course we all know and it's super obvious, but it doesn't really make sense on how she cracked it either.
Yeah.
But so it's like they kind of tried to give her something to do, but they like literally couldn't think of anything for her to do in the movie other than just be the classic damsel in distress is basically what it turns into. But
I don't know if they were given, I mean, this is a 96-minute movie. It is a fast-paced movie, so I don't know if they were like given, okay, this is all you got. Like you got this amount of time, you got to fill this amount of time, that's it. We're not doing anything longer than that. Because I agree that a lot of the story, and even, you know, I referenced earlier, you know, the topics that they were kind of tackling in the same vein as, you know, Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society or, you know, Spike Lee movies, things like that. But I will say a lot of it's very surface level.
Sure.
They don't go too deep in any particular topic. It's more like a flyover.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you are talking about community, like I said earlier, and you know, safety within the community, but political corruption, because like the
potentially
mayor,
to me it's
Mayor
very weird on
if was he corrupt or not?
Guess, I think I'm going to say no. I think he was actually just supposed to be a good dude, but it's like, but how did you get elected by Polito, or that's his real name? I don't remember what the character. Manelli.
Manelli.
How did you get elected by Manelli? You know, with Manelli in the, you know, in town running the show if he wasn't on your side? I don't get.
Yeah, but I agree with that completely. And even like when, so you know, they have that initial meeting where Manelli comes in and is like, you know, trying to throw his weight around in the campaign office, and he kind of rebuffs him, like Harris rebuffs him. He's like, oh, okay, so like he's not into him. And then they rob the office, which is like, okay, well that's payback for getting rebuffed. And then he wins in a landslide. And then later Manelli shows up in his office like demanding favors, which makes you think, okay, he got him elected.
So now
but he never flat out says it.
No.
It's like
and Harris, the mayor, says, no, I'm not going to do you any favors. So
right.
It's like, you're just a good dude or what? I don't know.
It's like a face turn after a heel turn that you never saw.
Yeah.
It's very weird in that regard.
Not sure if it happened. Yeah, but and, you know, nothing with like Manelli is like, you know, when you're talking about the surface levels stuff that they kind of scratch on, it's like, all right, so you're the crime boss of the city, but like to what end? Like, are you like, is there a racial thing in the city? Because Manelli is like a, you know, Italian white guy, but it looks like everything that we're exposed to is like it's an African American community. So I don't really know, like they didn't really ever touch on anything there. So it's kind of weird. Like, you know, what were they trying to scratch on? What was just like we just wrote a bad movie in some ways, or like there actually isn't anything there. Like you can look for it if you want, but it's not really supposed to be there. Like because nothing's like really flushed out.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that, and it's. So it's understandable why in that, you know, Blankman's not seen as a, you know, serious piece of filmmaking, you know, of the era.
No.
But it's fun.
It's fun.
I will say I had fun, and I think that's a big win.
Yeah, I think, you know, when the scene where the mayor dies, when he's like strapped to the safe or to the vault of the bank, when he's covered in a bomb and stuff like, I thought that was a pretty kind of fun scene. I thought like, you know, not like it hit the emotional beats where like, you know, the mayor's like, you did your best, go save yourself, and lets the mayor go out in a good way. Blankman kind of reveals his true identity to the mayor in like a sign of respect. Like, this is cool. This is actually like a good little scene.
Right.
but it's like a diamond in the rough in some ways.
Definitely, and I think it kind of goes to what you were saying. Maybe Harris was just a good dude because at that moment you would think, okay, maybe I'm going to use this scene to be like I did some bad stuff, or like maybe some kind of confession scene, and it really didn't turn into that.
Like, no, I'm good. I have nothing to confess about.
Right.
Go save yourself. I'm good
like,
dying.
My grandmother worked for you, and she died in your office, and you might be corrupt. No, I'm not corrupt. I'm good.
Okay. And your grandma was just a heck of a sweet lady.
I love that lady. She was great. So, okay. So maybe he was just a good dude.
And there was also, I do kind of like the idea of, like, David Allen Grier was in love with Robin Givens' character first, but, like, she falls for Damon Wayons, the more simple man, but just the truer soul kind of guy.
Right.
So I kind of like how that played together. And I like how it didn't, like, turn David Allen Grier against like the buddies like, no, I loved her first. You're a jerk for stealing her. No, they just kind of played it cool. And I kind of like that.
He was getting that lady out of their apartment.
Oh, yeah, he's doing fine.
He's doing fine. He's probably neck deep in the ladies. Like Damon Wayans can't even kiss a lady without prematurely ejaculating. So I think Damon Wayans.
I wish I didn't laugh every time he did that.
They probably did it one too many times, maybe. But I mean, especially when you got to get one in right at the end. I mean, they do say comedy comes in threes, so I guess that end one had to be there.
Yeah, it worked for me though. It did make me chuckle pretty much every time. So. Yeah. But J5.
J5.
Who's not Johnny 5.
Not Johnny 5. It is J5.
Yeah. We can't really talk about Johnny 5. I think I've seen Short Circuit too many times.
I don't think
we'll never
we
be able to talk about Johnny 5 here.
Short Circuit on Hello Movies,
but we can't talk about J5.
We can talk about J5, and you mentioned earlier about stuff you remembered, and I would actually say that was probably the stuff I remembered the most.
Yeah,
but didn't remember that I remembered. So like, at the end, at the end, at the police station, or not the police station, at the news station, when they turn J5 into a bomb disposal unit. Like I remembered that. I remembered them like filling him up with the explosives and like taking him outside and blowing up.
And then screaming like J5, no, don't die, J5.
Yeah, I remembered that like just before it happened. Like, oh, I remember what happens here. And another little tidbit. This is a side note, but I remembered is when they got the elevator rescue. When he like goes through the thing of like getting his
It's like grappling hook, but it's a plunger.
And then he's like, "Come on, jump down," or like, "Get on," and like David Allen Grier just jumps down the 2 feet to the elevator top. I remembered that. I remember just before it happened.
I remembered the mayor when he was strapped to the vault. I'm like, I remember this visual in my brain. And then when speaking of that scene you were just mentioning, like then Blankman's attached to this grappling hook, and as he goes down the elevator as the woman's delivering a baby, and he's like, I'm coming down now, down now. I kind of like found myself singing the song. Like, I remember the song.
I know
the words to the song.
Yeah.
But I thought that was kind of a cool little scene too. Like the way like he it's very Penguin-esque, like Batman Returns. Like he comes up with the baby, and this is his reveal to the city.
Yeah, that was definitely something.
I think a little bit of a callback there.
Because Batman Returns was 2 years before this. Yeah. So I think that was definitely intentional to be a bit of that, like, homage to the Penguin scene.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. I think that scene kind of worked. There, some things that we can touch on, maybe a couple of things that like don't really work.
Sure.
Like first of all, like Blankman just hangs out with David Allen Grier the whole time. They're brothers.
Right.
Like they're like in multiple adventures, they're working with each other. Like the bank robbery, David Allen Grier is just with him. They run away together when they escape. They're at the pregnancy, like in the elevator together. It's like people are going to figure out you two are related.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
but that's part
they
of the
never
joke,
do.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Again, like I do think some of that stuff is paper thin because they're making fun of it by it being paper thin. You know.
And at the very end, when Robin Givens kind of like sees Blankman unmasked, she does kind of play it like I've known the whole time who you are, kind of thing. Like. She's like not shocked at who he is necessarily, so you don't really know when she figured it out, but it's pretty obvious from the get-go.
Yeah.
But that's pretty thin. Like just the also Blankman and David Allen Grier's character not knowing that Manelli killed their grandma, which he very clearly is the crime boss of this town, and he very clearly was the one who robbed the mayor and killed all the employees.
What about defusing the bomb with a switch? Which I guess didn't really defuse the bomb, but it was like...
Defuse the bomb on him.
On him, but not the bag of bombs. But
I was like, well, just flip their switches.
Right?
Yeah. It was like, it was explained that they would take the bomb unit, the police bomb unit, 10 minutes to figure out how to defuse this. Blankman went up to it, thought for about a minute and flipped the switch, and that turned it off.
Right,
He basically hit the on-off switch.
Well, it was funny. It was 3 switches, 3 lights, 2 red and 1 green. And he's like, I'm gonna flip the green. He flips the green, and there you go. It's like,
turned it off.
oh, good. Wow.
Okay. That was cool. Yeah. So that was a little fun. They're like, wait, we wrote ourselves into a hole. How do we do this?
Yeah.
Let's just have it have an on-off switch. Yeah. So definitely some stuff that was pretty thin, but again, for me, I don't think like you go into a movie like this and you're like, if you're looking for plot, like, all right, go put on a different superhero movie. If you're looking for like that kind of super depth of character and stuff, this for like midday fun, especially back in 1994, I'm like, yeah, I can see why Kid Ray liked this for sure.
Definitely.
So I remember why Kid Ray liked it. So now let's think about Grown Up Ray and Grown Up Rob. Rob, what do you think? Did this movie hold up?
I think, okay, so I think that there is some very interesting elements to this movie. And like I said, I think they were trying to say certain things. You know, one thing we didn't touch on was like the news, you know, like hard edition or whatever.
That's
so
true.
like, so I think they were kind of like trying to talk a little bit about how the news is now,
Yeah.
you know, it like was at the time and obviously continued to ramp up to be now. And then, obviously said the stuff about the community and all that stuff. So I feel like Blankman had something to say. It maybe just wasn't the best vehicle to say it.
Sure.
But as I also said earlier, I had a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it like this. Do I think Blankman is a good movie? No. Like, it's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And will I ever watch it again? I don't know. I'm not going to say no, though. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say I don't know. But I'm with you. I understand why I liked it at the time.
Yeah.
And I had fun rewatching it now.
Yeah, I think for those reasons, I would have to, if you nailed me down and made me answer, I'd say, yeah, it holds up.
Yeah.
You know, I think, am I going to seek it out to watch it again? Not necessarily, but if somebody wanted to watch it and they invited me to go watch it, I'd be like, fine.
Yeah.
I can get through it. I'll chuckle again.
Yeah.
I'll laugh again. And so, I think for that reasons and, kind of what we say, I'm like, I would say it holds up.
Yeah.
I'd give it a hold up.
Yeah, it's not afraid to be what it is.
Yeah.
And live in its own
And
skin.
it's not trying to win an Academy Award.
No,
It
not
knows
at
what it
all.
is, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, it's very proud of what it is, and it has fun doing it, which means we had fun watching it.
All right. Well, overall, I'm glad we went back and checked out Blankman. I never would have otherwise. So thank you to this podcast for allowing us to do that.
2 in a row.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, we're starting to find some stuff that we actually still like.
Exactly.
This was on the border, but we said we still like it.
Exactly. Can't complain too much.
So, so we're wrapping up this conversation, but we still have a favor to ask of the audience, and that favor would have me and Rob feeling much like Blankman felt after he kissed Kimberly in the movie.
Oh.
We would feel that way if everybody here.
I've got a vision in my head, and I don't know anybody else wants that vision.
Yes, please keep that vision to yourself. But anyway, let's like the podcast. That would be great if you guys could do that. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't. Leave us a 5-star review, because if you do, we're going to read it live on air someday. Remember, you guys can reach out to us on email at carrayrob@gmail.com, or you guys can talk to us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. You would also be our very own personal superhero if you would share our podcast with all your family, friends, worst enemies. We are very much trying to grow our listening audience, and any help you could give us would be very much appreciated. We will be back next week with September, if you can believe it, first episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
That's right.
And it will be back to me.
Your turn.
And I have something I am extremely excited to show Ray. I think he's going to like it, but
I hate when you have to think about thinking.
I had to stumble a second, so maybe not. But you know what? We're going to see. But then we will be back in 2 weeks with our September episode of A Copy of a Copy, where we are going to be diving into the Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory swimming pool by watching the original musical version with Gene Wilder and the remake with Johnny Depp.
I really like one of those.
And I obviously grew up watching one a lot, and I have interesting thoughts about the second one, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in that episode, so you are definitely not going to want to miss it. But until then, this is RayRob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My old